When you go silent, they go silent too. And suddenly, the thing you thought would bring them back is the thing that feels like it's pushing them further away. But here's what nobody tells you about this moment, and it changes everything. Most people think no contact is a waiting game. You stop texting, you stop calling, you pull back, and then you sit there counting days like you're serving a sentence, hoping they'll crack first. And when they don't, when the avoidant on the other side also goes completely quiet, your brain starts spinning out. You start wondering if you made a mistake. You start wondering if silence to an avoidant is just comfort. Maybe they wanted this. Maybe they don't miss you at all. Maybe you meant less than you thought. Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through is going to reframe this entire experience for you. And I'm not going to give you the surface level stuff. I'm going to go deep into what is actually happening inside the avoidant's mind, inside your mind, and inside the space between you two right now. Because this silence, this mutual silence that feels so loud, is not what you think it is. Before we go there, I want you to drop a word in the comments right now. Just write the word signal in the comments if you've ever been in this situation where you went silent and they went silent too, and you had absolutely no idea what it meant. Write signal down there. It helps me know who I'm really talking to in this community, and it also helps this reach more people who need to hear this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that right now, because what we cover on this channel is the kind of thing that genuinely shifts how you see relationships, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is what no contact actually is versus what most people turn it into. No contact was never designed to be a manipulation tool. It was never a chess move. It was never meant to be a way to make someone miss you so they crawl back. That's the version people sell online because it sounds exciting and it gives you the illusion of control. But real no contact, the kind that actually works in your favor regardless of what the other person does, is about one thing. It's about you reclaiming your own emotional stability so that you stop operating from a place of desperation and anxiety. That distinction matters more than anything else in this conversation. Because the moment you understand that, you stop asking the wrong question. You stop asking, why are they also silent? And you start asking, what is this silence doing to me and for me? Now let's talk about the avoidant. And I want to be careful here because there's a lot of oversimplification around avoidant attachment that drives me crazy. People treat avoidants like they're cold robots who feel nothing and secretly love being alone. That is not the truth. Avoidants are people who learned very early in life that needing people was dangerous, that reaching out led to disappointment, that vulnerability came with a cost. So they developed a system, and that system is emotional self-sufficiency on the surface. Underneath it, there's often just as much longing and confusion and pain as you're experiencing. They've just gotten very good at not showing it and sometimes not even feeling it consciously. When you go into no contact, something starts happening inside the avoidant that they are often not even aware of. In the first few days, they feel relief. I know that's hard to hear, but understand what that relief is about. It's not relief that you're gone. It's relief that the emotional pressure has dropped. See, avoidants don't handle emotional intensity well. When a relationship has tension, when there are unresolved conversations, when they sense that someone needs something from them emotionally, they feel a kind of suffocation. And when that pressure lifts, even temporarily, they exhale. They feel space. And initially, that space feels good to them. This is the phase where if you're watching them from the outside, it might look like they're absolutely fine. They might post on social media. They might seem to go back to normal. And you're sitting there gutted, wondering how they can just be okay like this. But this is a surface reading. This is not the whole story. Around day 5 to 14, depending on the person and the relationship, something subtle starts to shift. The avoidant starts to notice your absence in a different way. Not in a panicked way yet, but in a quiet way. They might find themselves thinking about something funny they would have sent you. They might hear a song. They might drive past somewhere you went together. And for a moment, there's a pull. There's a reaching toward you that starts in their chest before their mind can shut it down. And their mind does shut it down, because that's what avoidants do. Their internal defense system says, I don't need this. This is fine. I'm fine. And they suppress it and they move on. But here's the thing about suppressing feelings. They don't disappear. They accumulate. Now here you are, on your side of the silence, white-knuckling it through your days, probably checking their social media even though you told yourself you wouldn't, probably drafting texts in your notes app that you never send, probably having full conversations with them in your head. And every day that passes without a word from them feels like confirmation of your worst fear. That you didn't matter, that they're over it, that you made a huge mistake by going quiet. I want to stop you right there, because this thought pattern is one of the most dangerous things that happens during no contact. It's called emotional reasoning, and it goes like this. I feel like they don't care, therefore they don't care. I feel abandoned, therefore I am being abandoned intentionally. I feel forgotten, therefore I am forgotten. Your feelings become your facts. And when that happens, you start making decisions from a place of fiction, not reality. What you feel in the silence is not necessarily what's true in the silence. Let me give you a different frame. Imagine the silence as a river between two people. On one bank is you. On the other bank is them. Most people in your position are staring across the river, obsessing over what's happening on the other bank. Are they moving? Are they looking over? Are they building something over there without me? And all of that staring across means you are completely ignoring what is happening on your own bank. What are you building? What are you tending to? What is growing or dying on your side while all your attention is pointed somewhere else? No contact only works when you actually use the time on your side of the river. When you become genuinely interested in your own life again. Not as a strategy, not to seem more attractive, but because your life actually deserves your attention. Because you are a whole person who existed before this relationship and you will exist after it. And the quality of that existence is being decided right now in this silence by what you choose to do with it. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the longer the silence goes on and the more you genuinely invest in yourself, something changes in the energetic dynamic even without any contact. This is not mystical. This is actually psychological. When someone is desperate and anxious and reaching, even when they're not literally reaching out, people can sense it. Avoidants especially are incredibly attuned to emotional states. They've had to be to survive their childhoods. So when you were in that anxious, desperate state, even before no contact, they could feel it. And it made them pull back more. Because to an avoidant, that emotional need feels like a demand. And demands trigger their shutdown response. But when you genuinely shift, when you start to feel your own ground under your feet again, when you stop orbiting their presence and start inhabiting your own life, the energy changes. And if and when contact does happen again, you are not showing up as the version of yourself that was quietly begging. You are showing up as someone who found their footing. And that is a completely different interaction. But let me be honest with you, because I think you deserve honesty more than comfort right now. Some avoidants will never break the silence. Some will stay silent because the silence is easier for them than the vulnerability of reaching out. This is not a reflection of your worth. This is a reflection of their limitations. And one of the hardest things you will ever have to do in your life is hold both of these truths at once. The truth that someone can care about you and still not be able to show up for you. And the truth that someone not being able to show up for you means they are not the right person for your life right now, regardless of how much you love them. Love is not enough. I know we grow up being told that love conquers all. But love is not a skill. Love is a feeling. Skills are what make relationships work. The skill of communicating through discomfort. The skill of staying present when things get hard. The skill of reaching towards someone even when your instinct is to pull away. An avoidant who has not done the work to develop those skills will struggle to be a real partner, no matter how much they might feel for you underneath all that self-protection. So where does that leave you right now in this silence, wondering what's happening? Here is what I want you to take into your body, not just your head. You are not passive in this situation. You are not just waiting. You are actively choosing every single day what version of yourself is going to emerge from this experience. And the version that emerges is going to determine what happens next, whether that's reconnection with this person or finding something even better. Let's talk about what the avoidant is actually going through in the extended silence, because this is the part most people never explain properly. I mentioned earlier that feelings accumulate when suppressed. Here's what that looks like over time. Around the 3 to 4 week mark, for a lot of avoidants, the feelings that were successfully buried start to surface in unexpected ways. They might feel a general sense of dissatisfaction with their life, even though nothing specific has changed. They might feel restless. They might reach for distractions more aggressively, more work, more going out, more anything that keeps them from sitting quietly with themselves. Because when an avoidant sits quietly, that's when the feelings they've been managing start to speak up. They might think about you more, not in the way they'll admit to anyone, maybe not even to themselves, but in the way things remind you of someone when you're not looking for the reminder. In the way you catch yourself smiling at something before you remember why you're not supposed to be thinking about that person. In the way certain hours of certain days have a particular emptiness that wasn't there before. This is not them missing you in a simple, clean, movie version way. This is them beginning to reckon with your absence in the complex, messy, confusing way that avoidants experience attachment, which is always layered, always contradictory, always half hidden, even from themselves. Now here's the question that's burning in your mind. Should they reach out? And if they don't, should you? And when is it too long to wait? I'm going to answer this, but I want to answer it in a way that actually serves you, not in a way that just tells you what to do. Because if I just tell you what to do, you'll do it. And then when the situation shifts slightly, you'll be lost again. I want you to understand the underlying principle so you can make good decisions no matter what happens. The underlying principle is this. Every action you take in this situation should be coming from a place of self-respect, not strategy. The moment your behavior becomes strategic, meaning you're doing things to produce a reaction in them, you've handed them control of your emotional state. Because now your whole experience depends on whether they respond the way you hoped. And if they don't, you crash. And if they do, the relief is temporary because you're still operating from that same anxious, approval-seeking place. When an action comes from self-respect, it looks completely different. If you reach out, it's because you have something genuine and clear to say, and you've made peace with the fact that they may not respond the way you want. If you stay silent, it's because you've decided you need more time to understand your own feelings, not because you're waiting for them to crack. The outcome is the same behavior, reaching out or staying silent, but the internal origin is completely different. And that internal origin determines your emotional experience and ultimately what you radiate in any interaction. So if you're asking me, should you break the silence? Here is my honest answer. Not yet. Not if you're still white-knuckling it. Not if you're still checking their social media twice a day. Not if you still feel like your happiness is tied directly to what they do next. Because if you reach out from that place, even the most perfectly crafted message will carry the scent of that anxiety. And an avoidant will smell it from a mile away. And it will confirm to them that the pressure is back. You want to reach out when reaching out feels genuinely light. When you've had enough time on your own bank of the river to feel stable. When you could send a message and actually be okay with whatever happens next. And I know that sounds like it might take forever, but I want to tell you something. That stability, that groundedness, it comes faster than you think when you actually stop making this situation the center of your universe. Let me talk to you about something that doesn't get enough attention. The grief. Because what you're experiencing right now is grief. Not necessarily the grief of a relationship that is definitively over, though it might be, but the grief of the version of the relationship you wanted and didn't get. The grief of the future you imagined. The grief of feeling close to someone and then watching that closeness dissolve. And grief is not linear. It does not follow a tidy schedule. It comes in waves. You'll have a day where you feel almost okay, almost like yourself, almost like you can see a future without this weight. And then something small, a song, a smell, a random Tuesday afternoon, and the whole thing cracks open again. That cracking open is not weakness. That is not a sign that you're not making progress. That is a sign that you genuinely connected with another human being, and that connection mattered to you. The cracking is not the problem. The problem is only when you let the cracking send you running back to them before you're ready. Not because reconnection is wrong, but because reconnecting from a broken place almost always repeats the same pattern. The pattern with avoidance, for those who don't know it well, goes something like this. You get close, they pull back. You chase, they pull back more. Eventually there's distance. You either leave or they create enough space to feel safe again. They come back. You feel hope. Things are good for a while. The intimacy deepens. They panic. They pull back again, and around it goes. The only way to interrupt that cycle is to do something genuinely different. Not to be clever, not to play a game, but to actually become someone who is not feeding the cycle anymore. And who is the person who feeds the cycle? It's the person who doesn't have their own solid ground. Who needs the relationship to define their sense of self? Who, when things are going well, is wonderful and warm and engaged. But when things get scary or distant, becomes anxious and grasping. That anxiety is not a character flaw. It's an attachment style. It's something that developed for real reasons in your history, but it is something you can work on. And here's the thing. Working on it is not just about this avoidant. It's about every relationship you'll ever have. Because even if this person comes back, and some avoidants do come back, they always come back, they do their cycle, some avoidants genuinely grow and become capable of real intimacy. But even if they come back, if you haven't shifted anything in yourself, you will re-enter the same dynamic. The names will be different, the details will be different, but the pattern will be the same. The anxious person chasing the person who runs. That pattern ends when one of the two people decides they're going to do something different. Let's talk about what doing something different actually looks like in real, daily, practical terms. Because I don't want this to be just beautiful words that feel good for 5 minutes and then fade. First thing, fill your time deliberately. Not desperately, not with things you do just to distract yourself from the pain, but with things that actually matter to you, or things you've been curious about, or things that connect you to people and experiences outside of this one person's orbit. Your life before this person had texture. Go find that texture again. Add new texture. This is not about getting over someone. This is about getting back to yourself. Second thing, stop consuming content about them. And by that I mean their social media, their old messages, anything that keeps you in the loop of what they're doing. Every time you check, you reopen the wound. You keep the nervous system in alert mode. You make it impossible for your mind to actually process and move forward because you keep feeding it new data points to obsess over. The digital detox from their presence is not optional. It is essential. Third thing, talk to someone, not to process and strategize about them, but to reconnect with your own interior. A therapist, a close friend, a journal, something that lets you hear yourself speak and understand what you're actually feeling underneath all the analysis. Because there's a lot happening in you right now that isn't about them at all. There's old stuff getting activated. There's old fears, old wounds, old stories about your own lovability. And those deserve attention. Those deserve care. Fourth thing, stop trying to predict what they're doing or feeling. I know the temptation is enormous. You want to know if they're thinking about you. You want to decode their silence. You want to find the hidden meaning in the fact that they watched your story or didn't watch your story or liked an old photo or unfollowed and then refollowed. Let me save you so much energy. You cannot know. And the attempt to know is keeping you trapped in a story you're writing with not enough information. Let the story go. Focus on the chapter you're actually living. Fifth thing, get honest about what you actually want. And I mean really honest. Not what you want in the fantasy version. Not the version of this person in their best moments. The real version. The one who is capable of going completely silent during a time of emotional difficulty. The one who, when things get intense, disappears rather than shows up. Do you actually want to build a life with someone whose first response to hard moments is to vanish? Some people say yes, because they see the potential, they see the beauty, they see the connection, and they believe with the right love, it can change. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes people do change, but change comes from within, not from how much someone loves them. You cannot love someone out of their avoidance. They have to choose on their own to do the work. So ask yourself the real question. Not how do I get them back, but do I actually want the version of this person that currently exists? Because you can want a future version of someone and spend your entire present waiting for them to become that person. And that is a very lonely way to live. Now, let's come back to the silence itself. Because I want to address something that happens a lot in this specific situation, the mutual silence. And it's something that can be deeply confusing. When both people go quiet, there's often a strange intensification of the connection, at least in your own mind, because the silence is full. It's not empty, it's charged. Every day that passes without contact is a day where unresolved energy just sits between you. And that unresolved energy can actually make the attachment stronger, not weaker. This is partly why people describe missing an avoidant as more intense than missing other partners. The relationship with an avoidant is often defined by push and pull, by getting close and then distance, by moments of real connection followed by withdrawal. And that inconsistency actually creates stronger attachment in the anxious nervous system. Because your brain gets trained to be on alert for the signal of closeness. And when that signal comes, the hit is enormous. And when it doesn't come, the withdrawal is enormous. This is not weakness. This is neuroscience. This is literally how the brain responds to variable reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. The unpredictability of the reward makes the chase more intense. So when you find yourself thinking that you've never felt this way about anyone else, that this person is different, that this connection is somehow more real or more special than other connections you've had, I want you to hold that thought gently and ask yourself a question. Is this connection special or is this pattern familiar? Because sometimes what we call chemistry is actually just a match between one person's avoidance and another person's anxious need for reassurance. It feels electric, it feels like fate, but it might actually just be two people recreating the attachment dynamics of their childhoods. That doesn't mean the feelings aren't real. They absolutely are real, but it changes how you interpret them. The intensity of what you feel is not necessarily a measure of the compatibility of the relationship. Let me bring this back to you, right now, today, in this silence. Here's what's really happening when you are in no contact and the avoidant is also silent. Two things are true simultaneously. One, they are not thinking about you every second. They are functioning. They are living their life. Maybe they are suppressing. Maybe they are relieved. Maybe there are quiet moments where you cross their mind and they shut it down. But they are not sitting on the other end of the silence in the same agony you might be in. That is the truth. And here's the second truth. That doesn't mean they don't care. It doesn't mean this is over. It doesn't mean you meant nothing. Avoidants process differently. Their nervous system responds to separation differently. They were taught to manage their own emotions internally, alone, from a young age. So them being quiet is not evidence of not caring. It might actually be evidence of caring in the only way they currently know how, by staying in their lane, by not overwhelming you or themselves with contact they don't know how to manage. Both of these truths coexist. And learning to hold complexity like this, instead of collapsing everything into a simple story, is one of the most emotionally mature things you can do. You're in a moment right now that feels like limbo, like nothing is happening, like time is suspended. But things are happening. Inside you, things are shifting. Your nervous system is recalibrating. Your identity is reasserting itself outside of this relationship. Your capacity to be alone, to sit with uncertainty, to not fill every moment of discomfort with action is being built right now. And that capacity is going to serve you for the rest of your life. The silence is not the enemy. The silence is the curriculum. And what you learn in the silence, who you become in the silence, is going to determine everything that comes after. Whether that's a conversation that changes things with this person, whether that's the realization that you deserve something that doesn't require you to wonder and wait and white knuckle your way through every week, whether that's simply the deep, settled knowledge that you can handle hard things, that you can survive not knowing, that your worth is not tied to whether one person decides to text back. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. No contact during avoidant silence is not failure. It is not a standoff. It is not a test you can win or lose. It is a season. And every season, if you use it right, produces something. What is this season producing in you? That is the only question worth spending your energy on right now. Because the version of you that comes out the other side of this, clear, grounded, self-respecting, genuinely okay with uncertainty, that version is magnetic. Not because they played a game, not because they manipulated the situation, but because they did the hardest thing a person can do. They stayed with themselves when everything in them wanted to run towards someone else. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. You don't have to be perfectly healed. You don't have to stop caring. You just have to keep choosing yourself, even when it's quiet, even when it's lonely, even when the uncertainty feels like it's going to crack you in half. Because the person on the other side of this silence who matters the most, it's you. It has always been you. And the moment you really understand that, the whole game changes.